Ladies and gentlemen, if you are a fan of any sport, and I really mean any sport, the thought has probably crossed your mind. What would happen if the best players of today played against the best players of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago? We have endless debates about who the GOATs are. What if Roger Federer went up against Carlos Alcaraz, right? What if George St. Pierre fought Khabib Nurmagomedov in mixed martial arts? And so on and so forth. Well, in chess, we have these questions too. And in today's video, I decided to pair Magnus Carlsen versus Mikhail Tal. Now, obviously, that is physically impossible. But on chess.com, there are bots, and they are programmed with playing styles, opening books from the period the person lived in, endgame skills, trash-talking abilities. And so today I'm going to show you 4 games, and the results are going to shock you. Because I'm going to tell you, going into this, I thought Magnus Carlsen would 4-0 the Tal bot. I really did. Because his openings are 60, 70 years more advanced. He's an endgame specialist. He's very good at putting out initiative. Well, you're going to have to wait and see. So, game number 1 is going to be 4 games. I gave both players a game with white and both players a game with the black pieces. So we open up. We have Tal playing the move e4 and the Carlsen bot responding with the move e5. Now, what's interesting about the position is that I did not expect this. I did not expect e5 from the Carlsen bot. I thought it was going to be playing the Sicilian defense, but I suppose that's life. Knight f3 was played. Obviously, from Tal, we got knight c6, and just as I expected, in the 1960s and 70s and 50s, you know, when Tal was playing, like, most of the games were going into Spanishes. They were really not going into Italians or anything else, so we got bishop to b5. We had a6 from Magnus. This is all the main line, daring the bishop to take the knight. It doesn't. The knight comes here, attacking the pawn in the center, castles, and now knight takes e4. So at this point in the Spanish, black has 2 choices. Play it closed with bishop to e7, b5, and then choose some line, and Tal probably played, I don't know, hundreds of different Spanishes, Ruy Lopez's, but instead, knight takes e4, and this is called the open Spanish because the board is about to open up. Tal, obviously knowing the best moves, plays pawn to d4, opening the position. We have b5 and d5. This is all normal. Now we have pawn takes, and black here has many choices. Not here, because here the pawn is hanging. Now black has some choices of playing passively or aggressively. Carlsen bot plays bishop to c5. Knight bd2 here, I think, is the modern day computer line, as well as bishop c2. But Tal is from the 60s. That was when he was the world champion. So if you look at the analysis database, you know, he goes for the second most common move, which is queen to d3. And now Magnus plays f6, immediately targeting the pawn. We have takes, bishop to e3. So here's the thing about this position. When I look at this, I'm like, oh, Carlsen is getting exactly what he wants. Keep in mind, my prediction for this video is the Carlsen bot wins every game. Every game. Because I don't doubt that every game will get into an endgame, and he's the best endgame player in the world. Therefore, the bot is programmed to be the best, you know, endgame player. This position has a very high chance to make it into an endgame. And the reason for that is the pieces are all kind of lined up to start trading against each other, and basically that's what happens, right? So we have here, takes, but then the Tal bot here plays an amazing move, bishop d4. Attacking the queen and trying to be taken to take back with the pawn, open the c-file, and put pressure on c7. This is a move I would expect if Carlsen was white and a dynamic attacking player like Tal or anybody else was playing with the black pieces. So takes, queen d6. And now I really did not understand, for the life of me, why the move knight takes e4 was not played. After pawn takes, queen takes e4, apparently this position, despite being a pawn up for white, is not good. I mean, my puny brain does not understand this. I did not understand at all. But instead, the Tal bot went here, and we had rook e8. Still, the knights are not taking each other. I would have liked knight f3, maybe knight e5. But knight f3 would have allowed probably some counterplay. So we have queen c2. And before you know it, you know, we just have the Tal bot just applying some pressure. Like, We had trade, rook d1, rook f7, and we see Magnus Carlsen, the bot itself, making a mistake in a rook endgame, which means that even though Tal was a dynamic player, a smoker, a drinker, tactician, like, the Soviet school of chess, even though he was born in Riga, at the time, Soviet, the endgame skills are still masterful. Like, it's really, the Soviet school of chess made these, look at this. The king begins to walk into the middle of the board, and the Talbot gets the pawn. Magnus gets some counterplay here with play down the center line, but the white king is in time to enter the center of the board, and this rook, which gracefully maneuvered itself to win the pawn, also cuts off the black king from the entire center. So Tal runs the king to d3. It's on the most active square it has been, very instructive in rook endgames. In rook endgames, running your king to the middle like this is very powerful, and blockading the pawn, this rook cuts this off. This is what we call a pawn majority because you have 3-on-2. I'm looking at this going, is Tal trying to win against Magnus Carlsen in a rook endgame? Rook f4. The king is now stranded on the edge of the board, and Tal wins a pawn. He just has a 5-on-4 endgame. I'm watching this unfold like unbelievable. I cannot believe what's happening. And then in this position, it wouldn't be a Mikhail Tal game if there wasn't a little bit of a dramatic moment. He sacrifices the rook. Not really. He's just trading. But white is just playing for a win here, which, again, is not shocking. I didn't think that. But yeah, like I said, I if anything, I would have expected tables to be completely flipped, that it would be the Carlsen bot beating the Tal bot in an endgame, and obviously these are bots, not everything is perfect, but watch as the Tal bot just advances, right? And h5 is a very nice move because one pawn controls two pawns. Those two pawns struggle to move forward, and, the second they do, you would en passant, right? No. This pawn is now a huge weakness, and so in every long-term endgame, this will be a problem. This was an advance that gained black a little bit of space, but in the long run, it will be difficult to defend the h6 pawn, particularly if the king and the rook move away, or if the rooks are traded. Now, does that matter? Does the Tal bot have the endgame technique necessary to convert this advantage? Yeah, the black king doesn't have a direction to run to, and so the white king has the luxury of just strolling into the center of the board like this, using checks to deflect the black king, because the black king doesn't know where to go. Does it try to be passive? Then the white king will go this way. Does it go this way? Then the white king goes this way. And ladies and gentlemen, in game number 1 of this mini-match, the Mikhail Tal bot walked into Magnus Carlsen's position and took every single pawn and defeated him in an endgame the way the Magnus Carlsen would defeat other people. I was looking like, oh my God, I did not expect this at all. Obviously this can be an outlier of a result, but this was incredible. And Tal checks, doesn't even win the rook. Now he does. And now we have ladder mate like this. Mikhail Tal just beat Magnus Carlsen the way Magnus Carlsen beats everybody else. Oh yeah, this is going to be a good match. Now I'm like, okay, that was a fluke, obviously. If you match the generations, they are 60 years apart. 60 years apart in chess is a huge amount of time and knowledge and everything, but Tal beat Magnus. I don't make up these results. I have the bots play against each other. Whatever happens, happens, okay? And then I share it with you. When I saw this, I couldn't believe my eyes, so I converted my prediction to, well, Magnus is going to win the next 3 games, or 2.5, because objectively speaking, most of sports progress over time. You stand on the shoulders of giants and you improve. Okay, Tal has white in the next game. Magnus plays the Sicilian defense. Now, here's the thing. I would have thought that his best chance was in e4, e5. In the Sicilian defense, I have shown many games on this channel where Tal absolutely blows up the board and, only bad things can happen. Now, the Carlsen bot plays the type of Sicilian defense that Carlsen has played his whole life. His favorite Sicilian, he played this all the time in the World Championship match against Fabiano Caruana, is the Sveshnikov, which is this. Now, the Sveshnikov was not that popular when Tal was in his heyday, and yet the bot plays the one of the main lines, the secondary main line, but the line that was played in the World Championship between Caruana and Carlsen almost all the time, and that's the move knight to d5. And the idea is the immediate threat on c7, so black has to take, and then retreat the knight. Knight b8 and knight e7 are the two most common moves. Some weirdos have put the knight here and then ran around this way. I don't understand. Knight e7, and now you just play very simple and straightforward c4. And white has the following idea. Bring the knight back when it's attacked, play bishop to d3, castle the king, obviously, potentially start an attack. Black, seeing that all these pawns can get moving in many positions, does launch an attack on white. And that is what Carlsen did against Caruana in their World Championship campaign. Knight to f5. Tal plays bishop to d3. We have bishop e7 developing. We have white castling. a6 kicks out the knight, and black castles. But apparently this is all wrong. Like, apparently you need to go g6. It's the preferred choice of the computer in many positions. Even though the knight is going to get to the d4 square, white is going to get a very nice position with the move f4. And that is exactly, like, if you give Tal himself or the bot an opportunity to make things dynamic, he will. And here, Carlsen played f6. And this move f6, when it was played by the bot, I nearly recoiled, like, physically, because Magnus himself would have never played that move. Ever. Ever. I mean, I don't know what he would have played, but f6 is so anti-positional. Everything on a light square is weak. I mean, in my opinion, right? I don't know. If Magnus was here, he would be like, of course it's a positional move, you idiot. Like, but to me, blocking his own bishop... And now what's funny is that for white, the best play here is g4, which is kind of hard to understand. Like, you don't really see a clear attack, and also your king is weak. Yeah, the computer just wants to play g4 and then f5. This is modern-day computers. Just suffocate the other side. Don't let them get anything. Tal played queen c2, simply attacking the knight. Carlsen defended it by checking and then moving his pawn up. And then I did look at this and go, I don't know what white is going to do here. Like, I don't get it. White has a nice position, but black is going to play very easy moves. Put his rook in the center. I mean, white's not going to play g4 now. It seems a little risky. And yeah, Tal moved his queen over to avoid any forks. And then he put his bishop on a3. And then, you know, after looking at the position and not liking white's position that much anymore, I started re-liking white's position. I'm like, is Tal really going to beat Magnus 2-0? Is he going to beat him every game? Like, are their styles just, according to the bots, totally a mismatch? Like, the style that Tal brings so uncompromising, right? Is that just like a good anti-Magnus type of style? Now, I think the real Magnus probably wouldn't lose 2-0, but you never know. Pawn takes c5, pawn takes c5, and then Tal just put his knight here. And I looked at this like, well, white is never going to lose. Ever. Because... this queen is horrendous. You're under a lot of pressure. White can break through with pawns and, like, you know, black's a move away from getting mated. You know, I'm not saying you're going to play g5. I just mean, like, there's attacking ideas swirling around all the time. And when the Carlsen bot has to trade the rooks and then trade the other rook, I'm like, oh, it's just giving up on the game. I mean, it's not giving. It's going to hold the draw. It's going to try not to lose. But, wow. 2 games for the Tal bot and, like, effortless. Completely effortless. Tal plays c5. The Tal bot plays c5 with the idea to deflect the pawn and play pawn to d6 and just crack through the position because the queen is so far away from the action that you have the time. Black's king is open and his most powerful piece is over here. So c5, like, immediately crashing through, requiring precise defense. And remember, the Carlsen bot will have the best defensive skills probably of any of the bots. It trades the rooks, and it finds the only move. White is winning here, if not for the only move, which is knight to b5, attacking the bishop, and if you take it, the queen gets active. Well, that's easy. Bishop to b4, and again, the only move. Again, white is a move away from winning this game. Bishop takes and pawn takes, or a4, and then you just crash through the middle, and we know that the problem with this move is still d6. Because even though the bishop is hanging, bishop c4, king g7, you take and you win. So, like, bishop f1, knight b5, like, Carlsen bot is literally just on the verge of defeat before it strikes back with a5. Ridiculous. Completely giving up the knight, but the bishop is out of squares, and the bishop can't run away. If you run away, the queen reactivates and wins the pawn. And the crazy thing is this is still equal because white's position was so good to begin with. Instead, we have bishop takes knight, we have pawn takes bishop, and Tal plays this. And I'm looking like, yo, how is black gonna stop these pawns? Because if you win one of them, I'm like, oh, Tal is still winning. Bishop d8 played by the Carlsen bot. Tal plays queen takes b4. Here Magnus goes for active counterplay with queen e3, looking to snipe the last rank of the board. It's looking like Tal can just take on b7 and promote. He plays queen c4, defending tactically against one of these back rank checks. And here, Magnus makes a mistake. Plays queen e1 check and trades off the queens into a seemingly drawish endgame. Now, what had to happen is black needed to play bishop to b6. This would have forced queen f1 anyway because of the back rank checkmate. And after pawn takes, this position is drawish, drawable according to Stockfish. The activity of the queen, and this is very, very instructive. The queen and the bishop together monitor this square, and these pawns create a constant threat. White is going to try to promote, right? Obviously some pawns. Black will try to hang back. You play like a4, whatever. But the thing is, black is also always threatening to take one of these pawns. You need the queen. And the Carlsen bot, under pressure in this endgame, under pressure in this game, goes to an endgame that resembles also a draw. And it very well could be. These types of endgames are extremely complicated. Like, the black king is going to run to the middle, and this bishop controls these pawns. Because if all of these pawns line up on the light squares, none of them can cross. It will be like Pac-Man. This bishop will just go and just eat all of them. You need the pawn on this square and this square and this square, or you need one of these pawns to somehow sneak through. Because if you're deflecting the bishop in two directions, you're going to win. When I first saw this appearing on the board, I was like, I can't believe it. I think Magnus is actually going to hold this position. And then, you know, everything happened. b4, and then the king ran. And then when the bot played this move, I was like, I don't even, what even is this move? King here, a4, king d6. It all looks correct. Everything looks correct. Bishop g5. I guess you could maybe play e4, bishop g5. But like I said, this pawn is going to make it through. That's what I was saying this whole time. If you play bishop b6 in this position, then after a5, I just win because I make the queen. I'm in time and you can't stop me. So when we got to this position, I thought, well, this is the blockade that, you know, that black wants. White can't cross at all. You can't cross any of the pawns. They will all be taken. And I was completely convinced that in this position, because again, I don't have this bar. You do, I didn't. So I'm looking at this and I'm wondering during the game, like, where's the win? Because it just looks like there's no way through. It looks like any of these pawns that go forward will be taken. There is no way for this king to get anywhere. It has no access to any part of the position. But that's the thing. There actually is access. There actually is access because there is a constant looming threat in the position for white. It's very mysterious, but Tal again showing the conversion technique of the Soviet school of chess. There is a threat in this position. If black does absolutely nothing, the threat is actually to take this pawn. It doesn't look like it's even possible. But if you take this pawn, of course, you win the game because you're going to break through. But if one of these pawns sacrifices itself and the other promotes, the bishop can't stop both of them. So with bishop takes d5 being the constant threat of the position, it makes sense that black would play d4 and d3 and try to promote. But that allows my bishop into the position. And since it allows the bishop into the position, it means that I will go target this pawn, which means that these two will simplify into one, which means the white king will be free. Look, the white king will gain access to this side of the board. You will simply create constant threats against these two pawns. One of them will need to push forward, and then you will lose the game. Look, bishop f7. I'm trying to go bishop g6. If you give me check, right, I will just move out of the way. I'll just move out of the way. It doesn't really matter. I'll just get out of the way. You're not going to be able to constantly stay here. That's the point. You won't be able to stay there. For instance, we can return on the analysis. Pawn to d3, king to d2, bishop a5 check, king e3, bishop b6 check. I win the pawn. My bishop is always just in time. It's always just in time. Now, let's pay attention one more time. Bishop f7, bishop a7, h3, right? We just wait. We wait. King c7, bishop d5. Now we force the pawn forward. And that little move grants me passage to the pawn. We now have bishop c4 from Tal, bishop b6, king d3, king e4. The king is going for it. The bishop comes back to e2. I don't think some of these moves are necessary. You're just kind of shuffling around. But now king f3, and the game is over. The game is over because it looked like this entire time we would not be able to move this blob of pawns, but they are so perfectly positioned that they freeze the bishop and the king. Neither the king nor the bishop can move because the second they move, we're going to sacrifice one of our pawns. King b6, king g4, bishop e7, c7. King takes a7, king b7, b6, and the game is over. Because now you defend yourself, you can't take because this, and I'm just in time with bishop f3. This is so wicked. When I first saw this endgame, I was like, this has to be a draw because it's a fortress. Like, there's no way in or out. But the fact that the only threat that exists is a sacrifice of the bishop to promote one of the pawns is so insane. And Tal correctly converted it. 2-0. What? Now, again, these are bots, right? But there's no way we could pair these legends. Would Magnus have traded the queens in a real game? I doubt it, but this is just so fascinating. It's so instructive to me, the way these bots beat each other. You needed the queen on the board for black because you needed to leave white's queen passive on f1. By trading it into an endgame that did look drawable, black lost. So now I adjust my prediction to the fact that Magnus is probably going to win the next two games with white. Why? Because white is a major advantage in 2025 against a player from the 1960s. It just is. In the 1960s, they played all sorts of openings that now simply wouldn't fly. So let's see. Will it end 2-2? E4, the Caro-Kann defense from Mikhail Tal himself. A little bit surprised because I'm pretty sure he hated this opening. but, he ended up playing the Sicilian defense. Actually, no, I'm thinking of a slightly different thing. Not he hated it. I think Fischer hated it. And Tal, there's a very famous clip of him moving the pawn to c6 and then moving it to c5. Like, holding it there and then instead playing the Sicilian defense because, that's the, but he plays the, Caro-Kann, d4, d5. And he plays the Karpov variation, which is very funny, right? Because he didn't quite live in the era of Karpov. Karpov came in the 70s and 80s, but of course they were contemporaries for some time. And, the Karpov variation, knight d7, just trying to play knight f6, a very solid line, not particularly ambitious. Carlsen playing knight g5 and developing some pieces. Knight f3, we kick out the knight. Now, what's funny is the best move here is knight e6. I know. It kind of looks like, Martian Gambit with the idea to leave the king on d8. This is actually a winning position for white, which is kind of incredible. But instead of that, it doesn't, that also, he wouldn't have taken that. He would have played queen d6. But we have knight e4 and just a very straightforward position for Magnus. I'm like, all right, he's going to go to work. Magnus is going to do Magnus things. Tal, of course, cannot resist himself. It's got to get dynamic. It's not the best move, but it has to get dynamic. Queen to e2, immediately punishing the inaccuracies of his opponent. I couldn't believe the next move. Of course, any normal person here with black develops the bishop, defends the pawn, and tries to castle. Frankly, any normal bot too. But we're talking about Tal. A flair for the dramatic. He plays pawn takes d4. Opening up a direct line against the king. Bishop takes c6 is a discovered check. The bishop simply blocks, and there's no way to actually take advantage of the position. So the Carlsen bot trades the knight, castles the king, and goes after the pawn on the d4 square. Now, it looks like black should simply be worse. It looks like black, this pawn is going to collapse. It's pinned to a queen. There's nothing you can really do. Rook e8. The Carlsen bot is looking to be in a position where it's just up a pawn. It's up a pure pawn, but it's not that simple. There are tactics countering the white position because of how strong the bishops are. And the Tal bot, even with the black pieces, manages to secure a position where it is down a pawn. It's down a clean pawn. But the dynamics supplement that pawn. Like, there's, it's like taking supplements, You boost your position because of how powerful your pieces are. And the bishop here is completely unopposed. It is such a strong piece. It pressures the white position so mightily. Your extra pawn is on c3 for white, but you can't even really move it forward because it will walk directly into threats. It will destabilize your center. I mean, this is a position Carlsen would put a lot of pressure and beat up his contemporary opponents. The ones of his generation. Plays queen e5. The best move here for black might even be retreating all the way, but he goes for the queen trade, takes. The Talbot is unafraid. It's down a pawn against Magnus Carlsen. Couldn't care less. I was so impressed by this. I'm like, so Carlsen with white plays the move e4, enters territory where white has an advantage. Of course, the actual Carlsen would have played the move knight e6, but again, the bot is programmed for long-term positional grinding, but against Tal, he just has a way to, he just puts all the pieces on the best squares and is like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And yeah, seriously, how is Carlsen going to win this position? Rook e1, and now for the next, 20 moves, nothing happened. Nothing. I mean, it, kept poking a little bit. Tal, brought his king, played a6. Both bots just kind of solidly moving around g5. And then, again, out of nowhere, just like Tal did back in the day, there was fire on the board. Look at this position. And then Tal was like, you know what? I don't want to sit around being down a pawn and playing a boring game. I have my bishops. They're pointing at the king. g5, g3, h5. Tal, a pawn down, is calling the shots against Magnus Carlsen, who goes king f2, h4. What business does black have creating an attack? And now, out of absolute thin air, a crazy tactical skirmish erupts on the board. Pawn takes h4. Rook h8. The Talbot is sacrificing the entire right side of the board. Just giving it away. Pawn takes g5. Rook takes h2 check, forcing the king to stand on the back rank. Rook takes b2. It literally, 3 moves ago, it looked like this. Now it looks like this. And rook b2. And now you can play pawn takes f6. You can straight up win every pawn on that side of the board. The Talbot doesn't care because there's counterplay against the king. c4 played. Moving the rook. f4. Moving the rook again. Now the rook has to go here. Knight f5. Defending the bishop. Threatening rook to d7. Talbot doesn't care. He takes back on g5. Because rook d7 check is a fork, but then you win the knight. Rook c7, king f5. And I was watching this unfold like, are we about to witness Carlsen bot get mated? 10 moves ago, again, 10 moves, this was the position. Stable, happy life for the white king. 41st move of the game. Everything is gone. It looks like just an explosion. And that's what it was like to play Tal. Out of nowhere, you gotta lock in or he's gonna take your soul. The only move not to lose, rook f7 check. The only move not to lose, you have to keep checking the king and get this rook off the board. You gotta trade the rooks. Rook f4, bishop f4, and now the Carlsen bot can still grind this endgame down, but this is a draw. This is a draw because of the nature of the opposite colored bishops. At the end of the day, the bishops can't actually outmaneuver each other, and since they can't outmaneuver each other, you don't have any support to promote your pawn. The bishop is always defending, and even if you retreated to the most passive square, the activity of the black rook completely sticking the king over here, it doesn't matter how far the pawn even gets. It can get all the way to c7. Look at this. You see what ends up happening is that the bishop is under attack, and if you try to play passively and defend it, I'll go after that pawn. So you don't have a way forward here with white. And even though the bot ends up putting a lot of pressure, that's what Carlsen bot does, squeezing water out of a stone. He gets some very limited winning chances right here. It's still a draw. You know why it's still a draw? Rook c7. At the end of the day, even if, you don't have to do that, but rook c7 and rook versus bishop is a draw. It's a draw. It's a draw in endgame. How do you draw it? You run the king to the right corner. And basically, you need to be in a corner where the bishop is always providing a shield for you. Because there's no way to get you out of there. So and again, I'm not even gonna we're not going to do a deep dive here, but okay, this is losing because there's rook 8, rook a7. Just bear with me. But, and here there's obviously this move, but this is a draw. Like, you need to be a little careful, of course, just like, you know, how I just did. But the crazy thing is, you can be completely stuck in this position. Again, you just got to be a little careful. You can be as stuck as, look at this. It looks like you are absolutely lost. No. You just need to be careful, right? If you go here, you hang mate. So don't hang mate. Go here. But the amazing thing is, in rook and bishop endgame, rook versus bishop, if you just get this, it's a draw. Because there's no way to lose it, provided you don't hang mate in one. So game 3 ends in a draw. Tal, with the black pieces down a pawn, launches a ruthless counterplay against Magnus's king, ultimately getting it into, it's now 2.5 to half. I'm really freaking out. I'm like, am I really about to make a video where the Talbot wins every single game? And Talbot, I mean, my guy, bro, he got a little arrogant. He went for the Benoni. This is an opening where in the 60s and 70s, it was a great opening. In modern times, it is a huge risk. It's a huge risk because of the absolutely devastating lack of space. And I mean, here you are looking for some tactics. It's not going to work. He leaves his queen there. The Talbot just leaving the queen there, and then gets a very nasty pawn structure where like even I, from 2022, I'm nowhere near Tal's level, but I know that white is going to really have some advantage here because black doesn't have any pawn mobility on the left side of the board. And, you know, I was curious, like, all right, this is obviously Carlsen bot's biggest advantage of this video. Is he going to convert it? The question is he going to be able to crash through on this side? That's it. I mean, that's where you have the space advantage. That's where black's pieces are lacking. Or is the Talbot even going to be able to complicate this game? So let's see. If Carlsen bot can't win this position, he can't win against the Talbot. It's just their styles are not made for each other. If there was a universe that the two of them could play in their prime, I have absolutely no idea who would win the game. But I know who would bring the fight. And it's very interesting to see who would be up for the challenge. Knight to e5. Now, here, I was convinced the best move was to leave and attack the knight, but the bot took, which is a Carlsen. I mean, retreating is also Carlsen-esque, but I was like, all right, now f4. That's maybe how Tal would have played it, but e6. I was looking like, ugh, this is nasty. This bishop is not very good. You're trying to, you know, Tal looking for double pawns, but open lines. Carlsen plays a very anti-Tal move here, f5. Keeping it very closed, keeping all these pieces in the way, not letting Tal get out. Pawn takes f5, pawn takes f5. But Tal will find a way. e4, there it is. Opening up the bishop, opening up the queen. Counterplay is never far away with Tal. Queen e7. You play queen d2, nice and controlled. Pawn takes f5. By the way, that is just a free pawn. But Carlsen bot knows. It knows that. Bishop h6, looking to remove the powerful potential bishop, leaving black with a terrible light squared bishop. Terrible. It's standing in timeout over there on the left side of the board. e3. Tal sacrifices a pawn to bring back the bishop, but open up the e-file and look for counterplay like this. Knight e4, pawn e4, and on the next move, f5. This is the way Tal played, but he is worse here. His position is worse because the pawn is very strong for white, and white is playing with 2 full pieces, whereas this bishop is not participating. Even if it comes back, it's not really participating. d6. Rook d8. This is Carlsen's game right here. Bishop g5, forcing the defense. Bishop h6, forcing the rook to move. Now we have queen e3, threatening rook to d5. Finally, the light squared bishop comes alive, but it's a purely defensive move. Meanwhile, these pieces have all shifted correctly into position, and we have d7, rook e7, and the bishop comes back. The queen is hanging, and bishop c7 is incoming. Tal darts into the white position. We have bishop c7, rook takes, rook takes, rook takes, but rook f5. And the black king is in dire straits. This bishop is defending this diagonal, which allows the king to sit safely on the h2 square, whereas the rook, the queen, the bishop, and this bishop will hunt this king. This is Carlsen-esque. Carlsen, it took 4 games for the bot to summon its mojo, but it's coming back, looking for defensive stuff. Bishop b6, nice move. Rook d3, sacrificing a rook to get black's, you know, to get the white rook. Bishop f5. And now bishop f1. The fact that you just calmly retreat the bishop to the starting square and you have a plus 2.5 advantage in the ensuing endgame is so Magnus style. Bishop d4, even here, I was like, Tal is getting counterplay. Queen, bishop, pass pawn. Carlsen bot went queen g5 and simply gave one more check to throw off the black king's equilibrium, put him on a dark square. Took. Carlsen's winning. And I was really, really impressed with the conversion. I couldn't believe the way that this game was actually won. So, you know, you have two extra pawns, right? 4-2. So queen c7, bishop here, I was like, okay. Obviously, you play queen c5. You keep both pawns protected. Maybe you play a4, you start running. You will never in a million years guess the best move in this position. Never. And the Carlsen bot played it because Magnus himself would have played it too. And this is just what I love. Showing the styles. King h2. Get at it. What? How is that the top stockfish move? You literally lose a pawn. Yep. You lose a pawn. Because either queen g3 is winning, because the bishop endgame is winning. Queen g3 check, take, and the king gets to f4, which means you win this, and then you win the endgame. But it's not even about that. The crazy thing is, and Magnus bot starts showing off, it doesn't even go here. It takes the longer road. King h2, queen g3. The king is so safe on this diagonal, and this pawn is so advanced. Watch Magnus say, I don't even need to trade the queens. Queen g3 is winning again. He just wants to win the endgame purely with queens and bishops on the board, almost like a revenge for the queen and bishop endgame that was lost a couple of games ago, centralizing the queen, pushing the pawn, merciless, completely merciless. There is not a single check to disturb this king. Bishop e6, bishop e8 check, hunts the king out like this. He doesn't even... Bro, you can just take and play bishop c6. Like, the pawn's hanging. If this, you bring the king and you play bishop b7. Like, it's over. What are you doing? He takes a pawn, and then here we end the game in style. We pin the bishop to the queen with a check, and then we make a queen. Because when the queen takes, we take. If the bishop takes, we take. The only way is this. We go here. Bam, 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 bam. Magnus Carlsen, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to lose 3 games to the Talbot, but this game was really Magnesian style. Queen to d4, queen to d8 mate. 4 games, but the first couple of games, these time games, the Talbot took 2 off the Magnus bot. I don't know what would happen in 20 or 30 games, and I don't think the bot plays like actual Magnus at certain moments, but that was very interesting because at the beginning of this video, given the time gap, the opening knowledge, the style of play, I would have thought the one that plays more subdued, controlled chess, positional chess, would put out the fire. I was wrong. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a shame, obviously, we can't get the real thing, but that's life in all sports. And if there's any other matchups you would like to see, let me know. Get out of here.